This story is about Prince Wein of Natra Kingdom, who is beloved by his people but in secret detests his responsibilities and treasonously plots to sell his kingdom. Natra Kingdom has long winters and no decent farmland, thus the economy is poor and its debts extensive. The only one who knows of Wein's selfishness is his assistant Nenem Rayleigh, who tries to keep him in line. The rich king of Marden is incompetent and hated by his citizens, so he plans to successfully invade Natra to make himself popular. Wein hopes to badly defend Natra, then negotiate to exchange the kingdom for money. Unfortunately, due to a deal he made with Earthwold Empire months ago for funding and training, plus a rousing improvised speech, his army actually defeats Marden, to Wein's great frustration. Knowing he must keep his generals' loyalty and maintain his facade as a great ruler, Wein suggests invading Marden's largest gold mine, hoping his generals will respect his courageous suggestion but reject the idea as too dangerous. Unfortunately, the generals all agree to the invasion. Wein holds out hope the invasion will fail, but the mine is taken easily, bringing wealth to Natra and further convincing everybody Wein is a great ruler. Wein learns from his chief miner the mine is actually worthless. Marden's king Fushtar is convinced by his corrupt advisors to send General Drawwood and his army to retake the mine, even though it leaves their borders undefended. Still hoping to make a profit and suspecting Fushtar doesn't know the mine is worthless, Wein decides to defend the mine for 1 month, then let Fushtar buy it back. After weeks of fighting, Drawwood sends Commander Logan to negotiate peace. However, when Logan grossly insults Nenem, Wein beheads Logan, then personally infiltrates Drawwood's camp and kills him for insulting Nenem, revealing just how strong his feelings for her are. It is revealed Wein is more capable than he seems, as he had attended Earthwold's military academy and came first in every class, an embarrassment to Earthwold, who kept his test scores a state secret. Wein learns Marden was invaded through its unprotected border by the Cavern Kingdom and Fushtar is dead, ending his plan to sell back the mine. Thankfully, his chief miner discovers a new highly profitable gold seam. Wein plans to celebrate, but Nenem threatens him into returning to work, further reinforcing his desire to somehow sell the kingdom and retire. Princess Loa of Earthwold, a friend of Wein's and Nenem's from the academy, offers a political marriage. Wein is suspicious as Loa is a notorious troublemaker. Loa privately reveals her 3 older brothers are fighting to become emperor, so she wants Wein's help to become empress. Wein is still suspicious as Loa's visit has coincided with weaponry being smuggled into Natra. Falania, Wein's younger sister, wonders why Wein doesn't marry Nenem, but Nenem claims marriage is impossible due to her Flam people being discriminated against, so she is content knowing Wein loves her and only her. Loa and Nenem remember their other friends Glenn and Strang, while Loa reveals she has problems with Gerard and Gadel, who wants to marry her. Wein tutors Falania in interkingdom politics, focusing on Aunt Gadel. The current Aunt Gadel Marquis, Gerard's father Greenwich, is a notorious tyrant. Loa remembers how at the academy Wein recognized her ambition and bluntly told her to take what she wants, perhaps by starting a war. He also bluntly told her he would avoid helping at all costs, so she would have to drag him into her war by trickery, which she is currently scheming to do, and wonders how Wein will try to maneuver his way out of it. Wein confirms the nations conquered by the Empire are staging a rebellion. He also correctly guesses Loa's brothers are too busy fighting each other to have noticed, so Lowell is trying to manipulate Greenwich into rebelling early by using her betrothal as bait. Gerard arrives to claim Lowell as his fiancée. Wein reasons Lowell will manipulate Gerard into ending his father's rebellion using Natra's army, so Wein must try not to be manipulated into giving over his army. Gerard learns Wein was trained with a sword and asks for a demonstration. Wein intends the duel to be a draw, but Gerard is so incompetent Wein wins without trying. Furious, Gerard attempts to stab Wein in the back, but is so drunk he smashes through a window and falls to his death. Greenwich believes Gerard was assassinated by Wein and Lowell and prepares for war. The conspirators behind the rebellion are afraid war will cause the rebellion to be discovered. Wein is furious he now faces war with Garen and probably the Empire. Lowell decides to focus on crushing the rebellion with Wine's assistance, but Wine reveals their current budget has limited Natra's army to only 500 men. Instead, they must somehow expose the rebellion so war can be avoided entirely. Wine pays an official visit to Aunt Gadel to return Gerard's body to Greenwich and discuss peace. The conspirators scramble to work out what Wine is up to. Wine reveals that Loa knows about the rebellion but offers to let Greenwich claim innocence by claiming Gerard was the real conspirator. Greenwich asks for time to consider, so Wine leaves, only for Greenwich to send the conspirators after Wine to get revenge for Gerard. Wine had been expecting this and realizes the conspirators are all from the Western Kingdom and had clearly tried to manipulate Greenwich into doing their dirty work for the rebellion, but the plot has now failed. Wine defeats them while Nanaki, Wine's assassin bodyguard, stops other conspirators from destroying evidence in Greenwich's castle. Greenwich chases Wine as he escapes back toward Natra, only to find Wine has stationed his army on the border, trapping Greenwich between Wine and Loa, who arrives with her own imperial soldiers. Having been exposed and captured, Greenwich admits to everything. With her mission successful, Loa calls off her engagement to Wine, though Ninnim tricks her into confessing she likes Wine. Wine admits there were easier ways he could have defeated Gran Ake, but this way means Loa now has control over him for use in the future. Loa returns to the Empire hoping one day to be Empress so she, Wine, and Ninnim can be friends like they used to. Wine is forced to visit Cavern Kingdom for Spirit Festival, a holiday of the Levitian religion. During the journey he visits his captured gold mine and worries trouble might arise following the retirement of his general, Hegel. Several Nadran nobles lead by a woman named Ibis plot to seize Wine's throne. Wine is ambushed by soldiers disguised as bandits, but is rescued by remnants of Martin's army led by General Zeno. Zeno threatens to assassinate Wine to prevent him allying with Cavern, but as Wine suspects the bandits were Cavern soldiers, he offers Zeno access to Cavern via his diplomatic status, allowing her to meet rulers of other kingdoms, potential allies against Cavern. At Cavern's capital, Tristoria, Wine meets General Levert and suspects he was behind the fake bandit ambush. Wine meets King Ordelas while Zeno almost assassinates Hollinier, treasonous former advisor to her deceased King Fushtar. Ordelas introduces Wine to the Holy Elite, Levitian's ruling members, and shocks everyone by inviting Wine as a new member. Wine meets privately with Elite Caldmelia, but leaves when she asks Wine to wipe out the remnants of Martin's army in exchange for her accepting him as Elite. It is revealed Caldmelia is allied with Owl, one of the Aunt Gadel conspirators who lost an arm dueling with Wine. Ninnim finds proof Levert is conspiring to kill Wine and overthrow Natra. At the same time, Ibis and the nobles take over Wine's gold mine. Wine realizes that by elevating him to Elite, Ordelas hopes to put Wine in his debt. Ordelas casually reveals he had a daughter who disappointed him, so he executed his wife, claiming she conceived their daughter in an affair with another man. He then enrages Wine when he asks to purchase Flom citizens of Natra Kingdom, like Ninnim, so he can hunt them for sport. Wine murders Ordelas while Zeno gets her revenge by murdering Hollinier. Caldmelia frames Levert for conspiring against Ordelas and moves to seize power in Cavern. Out of twisted gratitude to Wine, she sends a message informing him Natra has been seized by corrupt Natran nobles. With this information, Wine leads Levert and his men into a trap between the treasonous nobles' army and the Martin soldiers, forcing Levert to attack both. Wine also reveals he faked General Hegel's retirement, who arrives and destroys Levert and the Natran traders. Zeno reveals she is actually Martin's princess, though Wine knew this the whole time. Ibis reports to her master, Caldmelia, who begins plotting how to cause even more chaos. Zeno requests Martin become a vassal state to Natra, allowing Wine to rule Martin as well, which will make Wine's life even more difficult, amusing both Ninnim and Zeno. Loa attends the summit of imperial heirs in Milter's merchant city, where she and her brothers will negotiate for the throne. Loa invites Wine, but Falania attends instead. Wine had intended to claim he was busy so as to annoy Loa, not expecting Falania to volunteer. Wine sends Ninnim and Nanaki as chaperones and thoroughly educates Falania about the princes. Manfred gains support through cunning and bribery, Bardlosh is a soldier and has the support of the military, and the eldest Demetrio is a notorious troublemaker. Loa wants Falania to support her publicly, but is told Wine has no interest in an alliance with the Empire unless Loa is its empress. Falania learns of the Citizens' Assembly where common merchants create laws, interesting Falania that Nielters is ruled by its citizens. Demetrio decides Falania's presence instead of Wine's is an insult. Pretending he desires alliance with Natra, he asks Falania to marry him, planning to abuse her terribly once she becomes his wife. He is surprised when Falania shows knowledge of political royal marriages, allowing her to temporarily refuse his proposal. Losing his temper, Demetrio swears to ruin Natra once he becomes emperor, only for Wine to suddenly appear, having heard Demetrio's angry outburst. Wine agrees to the marriage, but claims he and Loa will marry as well. Realizing that two royal marriages would give Natra enormous power in the empire, Demetrio agrees to discuss the matter later. Wine, who displays symptoms of ill health, worries the Levitians will try stop Nielters from joining the empire. Loa is worried the summit will fail. Worried about Wine's intentions, Manfred orders him assassinated. Falania spends more time at the Citizens' Assembly and is surprised when the merchants invite her to join in their debate. At his next meeting with Demetrio, Wine realizes the tea is poisoned by Manfred's assassin. Thinking Wine is trying to insult his hospitality, Demetrio drinks the tea himself before Wine can stop him and collapses. Demetrio survives, but Manfred and Bardlosh blame Nielters and surround the city with their armies. Wine decides they should escape to Natra, but Levitia's army also arrives, supposedly to save Nielters from Manfred and Bardlosh. The situation worsens Wine's health and he collapses. Falania gives a speech to the panicking assembly. Wine awakens and shares a caring moment with Ninim. Reasoning that citizens are more important than the city, Falania evaluates all 30,000 citizens who walk right past the stunned armies to ask a similarly stunned Caldmelia for asylum. Knowing Levitia can't cope with 30,000 refugees, Wine steps in with a suggestion. Wine suggests Nieltar's citizens fight for themselves by buying the weapons from Levitia's army. Impressed, Caldmelia almost refuses just to see Wine panic, but her king Gruyere accepts. Manfred and Bardlosh meet with Wine, who claims Demetrio planned his own failed poisoning. Despite knowing this is a blatant lie, Bardlosh and Manfred are forced to agree to avoid war. Loa is surprised Wine only got involved because Falania likes Nielters and he didn't want her first political experience to end in failure. Ninim is impressed Wine has abandoned his plan to sell Natra, even though it is for yet more selfish reasons. Gruyere invites Wine to a ceremony in Solgest Kingdom. Wine visits Martin, where he suspects Zeno will ask for a political marriage. Despite the advantages for Martin, Zeno never mentions marriage. Zeno asks why Wine concerns himself with the well-being of commoners, so Wine points out that far back enough in history, all royal families began with a commoner who distinguished themselves and founded the family line, so commoners all have the potential for nobility in the future, so it is wise to be wary of them in the present. He attempts to goad Zeno into discussing marriage, but having decided she would be an unfit queen for a king like Wine, she claims he is not her type, depressing him that his childish plan to thwart her proposal has failed. Western kingdoms under the Levitian religion refuse to trade with the empire, so Wine fraudulently labels imperial goods as Natran and sells them to the west via Martin. Prime Minister Sergius of Delunio confronts Wine over the fraud, but Wine dismisses him. Arriving at Solgest, Wine is impressed by its trading ports. Wine suspects Solgest's king Gruyere will try to prevent imperial goods being traded and hopes to manipulate Gruyere against the hostile Delunio kingdom. Princess Talchila, Gruyere's daughter, manages to distract Wine with Solgest's finest cuisine. Sergius demands back land at least to Martin, arguing that since Martin is now part of Natra, Martin Kingdom no longer exists, voiding the lease. Wine suspects Gruyere will try to assassinate him, but when Gruyere meets with Wine, he is surprised. Gruyere claims that, despite being a Levitian elite, he does not think of Flams like Ninim as devils and is quite liberal. He agrees to an alliance with Natra, but as Wine leaves, it is revealed Gruyere is working with Sergius. After returning to nature, Wine is told Delonio has invaded Martin and Solgest has declared war on Natra. Zeno suggests Natra somehow make peace with Delonio, but Wine declares he has a plan to turn everything upside down. Sergis plots to donate the recaptured Martin land to the Levitian Church in exchange for becoming an elite. While negotiating with Sergis, Wine offers to assassinate Gruyere, pointing out if Solgest keeps growing in power it will likely go to war with Natra and Delonio. Overconfident, Sergis offers to accept Natran refugees after the war, so Wine declares Natra's 800,000 citizens will move into Delonio as refugees immediately. Knowing Wine already did something similar with Milter's 30,000 citizens, Sergis panics. Wine also falsely claims clothing he sold to Delonio via Martin was covered in a slow-acting poison and Delonio's citizens will soon die. Totally outmaneuvered by Wine's daring and scheming, Sergis is forced to agree to Wine's terms. Gruyere is defeated and imprisoned in Natra. Wine reveals Sergis' surrender cost him his political reputation and is no longer a threat. Gruyere agrees to sign peace declarations, but first demands to know what is truly in Wine's heart that drives him to such extremes. Wine's answer first shocks, then highly amuses Gruyere. The next day, Nenem points out achieving peace has cost Natra most of its wealth and its peaceful relationship with the Levitian Church. Wine throws a tantrum as he realizes his plan to sell Natra is further away than ever and he has a lot of work to do to fix it. And that's conclude the Season 1 of the Genius Prince's Guide to Raising a Nation Out of Debt. Hey guys, if you like this video please press that like button, and if you're not a subscriber please consider to push that subscribe button for my channel. There are more good anime summaries coming just for you, so click that notification bell too. Thank you so much for being here. Till next time, see ya.